Hey, Curtis,
Hey, Oz.
I hear you got a movie this week.
I do, and I have a movie marriage for you, my
Oh
friend.
boy, oh boy.
This week, we're going to talk about Daredevil meets Hell Comes to Frogtown, throw in some anger management, a little pinch of Friday the 13th, and all ends up with a big family trip to Chuck E. Cheese. This week, we're talking about 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I love the diversity and
Yeah,
range of a movie
I
marriage like
I
that.
I am very pleased
That
with
was a good
myself
one. That
this
was a
week.
very
Yes.
good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hell Comes to Frogtown for those. Check back. We've covered that movie
Yeah.
before if you're like, never heard of that one.
I,
Uh,
I originally had the NES game Battletoads, but it's
that
like
would,
that's
yeah.
that's too obscure. I need something else. And
Yeah.
so yeah.
Battletoads, hard game.
Yes. Yeah, that is consistently in like your lists of like
Yeah.
hardest video games ever.
As well as pretty much anything launched on the NES from Disney, like
Yeah.
or
Hmm.
SNES. Like those games were hard.
Yes.
Mom, can I play Lion King? Sure. You're not going to get past the first level, but go for it.
It'll be harder than you trying to emotionally manage Simba's death.
Right. But yeah, Battletoads was a hard game.
Mhm.
Very hard game. Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another week of Let's Talk About Flicks, the podcast where we take a monthly theme and come to you weekly with a movie to fit such theme.
Yep.
This month's theme is non-Marvel DC comic book movies, and it is your week, and we
It
are
is.
picking up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, a very a comic book that definitely grew legs and took off sprinting. Like
Yes.
for an indie comic, like kind of self-published, it just
Yeah.
was like people at. It's definitely one of those of like right idea, right time.
Yeah.
Of it struck and people like were like taking out a second mortgage to go watch this movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I never got into, or I never
Right.
allowed myself, I should say, like get into the original runs of the comic, but it was very dark.
yeah, I
And-
remember that being the
Yeah.
case. I didn't
And-
get into it either, but that's something I had heard.
And a couple years later, the animated show started in I think 87 or 88, and then this is from 90, and
Yeah.
this movie better captures the comic book than the original animated
Yeah.
show did.
Right.
It's still not nearly as dark.
No,
but,
and
yeah.
I'd read in the trivia that they were worried it would be.
Mhm.
That I guess they fired the director fairly close to the end of it because the studio was worried that like, yeah, this could be real dark, and so
Yeah.
they,
Yeah, 10-year-old Curtis was caught off guard by Raphael screaming, "Damn!"
yeah, and of course, to a 10-year-old, especially a 10-year-old in this era,
Mhm.
of 1990, early or late 80s, early 90s, like that was still a bad word.
Yes.
And it
Yeah,
was
I was like, oh, like I don't know if I could watch this,
right.
Mom and
Yeah,
Dad.
yeah,
Like,
it was. I mean, I remember. Granted, there was hardcore stuff, with NWA and whatnot, but I remember LL Cool J, even in Mama Said Knock You Out, with
Yep.
that long string of damn it's, and it was like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, like
I'm gonna get in trouble for listening
Exactly.
to Ladies Love Cool J.
Exactly. And now we're at the era today where, kind of fun little anecdote. Thursday, I'm helping my 13-year-old daughter with her homework, and she goes, "Hey, Dad, what? I know how to make Siri say a bad word." I go, "You do?" She goes, "Yeah," and I'm just like thinking that's the end of it. Next thing I know, she's like, "Hey, Siri, what does WTF mean?" And Siri's like, "Oh, that's a colloquial slang for," and then says it, and
Yes.
she's just laughing, and I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, like I'm aware that what you listen to, what you watch, but like you're still a pretty, straight as an arrow kid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, okay, she's comfortable enough that she could do this. To which I said, "Well, where'd you learn that?" And she goes, her little brother, who's 10 or 9, she points over at him.
And he's white as a ghost. I didn't know that was coming.
Oh no,
thanks,
not at
thanks
all.
thanks for bus tossing me.
She's like, he did, and I go, "Did you teach her that?" He just went, "Yep." And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I guess just to show how well behaved my kids are, I'm sitting there like in this existential panic of like,
yeah, you're the one sweating bullets.
I know, like, oh my God, they're going to be bad kids. This is it. This is where it starts. But it's like, meanwhile, back in the like the late 80s, 90s, like you said, that like that damn it was like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
even if like your mom or dad said it aloud, you were like, uh-oh.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I'm with you. You know, very dark. And I thought this movie did a really nice job because let's not kid ourselves. Cartoons are made for children, and so they lighten everything. I mean,
especially that era.
Toxic Avenger had a cartoon. Like,
yeah, Melvin's on fire.
Like in the movie, they run over a child's head.
Yes,
and now
a dog gets blasted with a shotgun,
and now they make a cartoon out of it. So, that's quite a bit darker than I'm sure the original Ninja Turtles run. But yeah, so I think Ninja Turtles did a great job of like, let's take some of the darkness from the comic and mix it with some of the lightheartedness from the the cartoon and go from there. So
yeah. So, hey, who's in this movie?
Well, before we even get there, I do want to give a shout out.
We got our Patreons.
Give a shout out to Patreon subscribers Don S, Aaron A, Mandy K, Melissa L, and newcomer Colleen K. Thank you all for your patronage.
Thanks, Cokes.
Yeah, that's folks and Cokie is mixed in.
Yes.
All right. So, who is in this film? We have kind of a weird dynamic because this movie is live action, but it's also. There's some puppeteering going on. There's some voiceovers going on. So I'm going to kind of give it in a couple of different phases here.
Sure.
Live action are like flesh and blood actors that we see. We see Judith Hoag as April O'Neil, which is April O'Neil. Like she's the action gunning reporter for Channel 3 News.
Yep.
We see. I've always been real hesitant. I think his name's pronounced. Is it Elias Koteas?
I think it's Koteas.
Yeah, it's one of those. It's
I actually ran that by Patreon subscriber Melissa L for confirmation.
Yeah, because I'm like, that looks how it should be pronounced, but playing Casey Jones, the Turtles, impromptu sidekick kind of thing.
Human vigilante.
Yeah, that is pretty much weak without some sort of sporting good in his hand.
Yes, he's nothing without a trip to Sports Authority.
Exactly. We got April's boss, Charles Pennington, played by Jay Patterson.
Charles Pennington.
The third. With his son, Michael Turney, as Danny. Danny's kind of the connection between the good and bad of the movie.
Yes, the moral fiber, the moral dilemma of the movie.
We definitely get a like rough talking, loud chief of police Raymond Serra as Stearns.
Are you telling me how to do my job?
We can only film this man in Dutch angles. James Sato.
That's every time he yelled, the camera just moved because he was yelling.
It scares
fell
the
off
camera.
its balance. Yeah,
it scares the camera. We get James Sato as a Rokosaki / the Shredder.
We do.
The big bad of the movie. We get Toshishiro Obata as Mr. Tatsu, who arguably we see more in the movie than we do Shredder, and he also seems to be meaner than Shredder.
He is. He's again, anger management.
Well, yeah. Then again, he was surrounded by teenage boys a lot in this movie. I'm sure he just was over it.
You'd be angry too.
Yeah. We get a young Sam Rockwell as
we do
as head thug, as well as a uncredited Skeet Ulrich and Scott Wolf appearance.
Yes, among all three of their first film appearances.
Exactly. Voice cast, really the only one that stands out is Corey Feldman. Everybody else does a great job with their voice, but Corey Feldman really shines there. And then I do want to give a shout to Josh Pius, as he not only voiced Raphael, but also played the in-suit performance of Raphael. And then just a variety of puppeteers and in-suit performers. And so that's it. That's the cast and crew of said film. So what do we have for a plot?
Yeah, as far as the plot of 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, rated 6.8 on IMDb. So like a pretty decent rating.
It's very solid rating. Yeah. Also one on Rotten Tomatoes, abysmal critic rating, but through the roof, like, audience rating. So
Yeah.
it was one of those, like, fits into that. The critics didn't think much of it, which is fair. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
not a great movie, but it's a
No.
really fun movie.
But yeah, and it's definitely one that's going to get, well, I mean, the
Yeah.
movie at the time was the highest grossing independent film of all time.
Yeah, until Blair Witch, almost 10 years later.
Yeah, and so clearly the audience loved it.
Yeah.
Which is great, considering that, again, this all stemmed from a self-produced comic book that just debuted 6 years earlier.
Yeah.
You know, turned into a cartoon and then turned into this movie. Like, people were like, turtle power all over the place.
Mm-hmm. So we open on April O'Neil, just a TV report from her, as Oz said. You know, she's a plucky TV reporter. She was reporting on local organized crime. There's been a lot of theft in the area. I do love in this opening little montage, there's a woman sitting like on her like fire escape watching TV, and she turns to like adjust a cord, and she literally doesn't move. She just turns her torso, and you see these hands come into frame and take the TV.
Yeah.
And she turns back and goes, "Oh!"
like hops out of her seat.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that meme of the like the sneezing panda.
Yeah.
The mom, like the mother panda's reaction. But yeah, like this lady's on a fire escape, and like, so somebody came up, said fire escape.
Yeah, so she didn't notice him.
Snatched her TV in the 0.4 seconds that she turned her head.
Yes.
And then they're at the street level again, running away before she sees them. Like, I really enjoyed, like you said, this spicing it of April reporting and all of this street crime,
all of this little crime that's happening, and it's a lot of petty theft.
Yeah,
you know, some like assault and things. You know, like nobody's getting murdered as far as we know.
You know,
but
a lot of pickpocketing.
Yes, but people are scared.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thing. People are scared. She's taking shots at City Hall, at the police station. Like, you know, what's happening here? So she leaves the TV station that night wearing her trademark yellow trench coat, which apparently Judith Hoag didn't like. And Judith Hoag, there's a reason she wasn't brought back for the sequels.
Yeah, very whiny from what I've read.
On
but
set,
I know they wanted to put her in like the yellow jumpsuit.
Yeah.
And this was kind of the compromise. So
yes, for one scene, they put her in a yellow trench coat.
And they didn't even cast her as Jubilee, which could have happened.
Yeah. She didn't blow up any arcade machines or VCRs.
Like, nobody wanted Judith Hoag after.
So after she's startled by a rat, she stumbles across several young people in the middle of a theft. They're unloading like a delivery truck. And she kind of jokes with them a little bit because that's what she does.
Yeah.
And a sigh flies into frame just as they're about to assault her and knocks out the lights. And then, as quoting my notes, we hear ninja sounds and people being beaten up. The lights pop back on, and all of these young punks are bound. And April is kind of on the ground, and she comes across the sigh as we see Raph watching from under a manhole as she takes the sigh and puts it in her purse. We hear for the first time in the movie, Raph goes, "Damn."
Not because of the sigh, but he really found her attractive.
He was just impressed with his knot tying.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Now that I see it in the light, it's like a great job.
That was a great ship knot right there.
But yeah, like we mentioned earlier, like this is within the first few minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
So for a child, you're like, oh, I'm watching a bad film.
Yeah. Well, and we were talking before. It's a dark movie. It's literally dark as well. Like a lot of things take place at night or indoors.
Right.
Yeah. So we get the music play, we get the credits, we get the classic TMNT logo that pops in the screen, the same one, that the animated show used. And we see the four of them celebrating in the sewers. They're happy, they won the little battle. They saved the plucky reporter. And they arrive back home, and Splinter, like, were you unseen? Like, yeah. As Splinter's kind of talking to him, Mikey's ordering a pizza.
Yeah, he's like, let's meditate. And then Michelangelo's ordered a pizza.
And we get some classic kind of goofy turtle stuff. The order of the pizza, tequila's playing, Mikey and Donnie are dancing. Later, Mikey and Donnie go to pick up the pizza from the Domino's guy. and it's like they get the pizza through the sewer grate.
Yeah.
Like it's. I also love the sequence where Leonardo's ginsuing the pizza. Yeah.
Well, and one thing that I really do think gets overlooked a lot is these are teenagers.
Yes.
It's just obviously you're watching Turtles as ninjas, but really they're behaving like teenage boys would behave.
Yeah, like 15-year-olds.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you seen the newest? It's early 2024 is the time of this recording. Did you see the newest animated movie, the
I've not.
Mutant Mayhem? It's
I've
fun.
Not. Is it?
It's fun. I really liked it, and they get the voice actors were all teenagers.
Okay.
So I think it comes across a little more authentic.
That's good,
and it's just a little more real than a lot of other Turtles projects. So
I'll have to give it a shot.
Yeah, it's fun. I think your kids will like it too. Wise men say forgiveness is divine, but never pay full price for late pizza.
Right.
Raphael is very upset that he lost his side. He's sulking. He goes out to a movie. He goes to see the movie Critters, which I thought was particularly funny.
I love Critters. Like was one of my son's first horror films.
Nice.
And even he enjoyed it enough he wanted to watch it the next weekend. And coincidentally, for completely unrelated reasons, he vomited after both viewings 2 weekends in a row.
Couldn't handle his Critters.
I guess not.
After seeing the movie, Raph breaks up a purse grabbing. These punks run off. And Casey Jones, we see him for the first time wearing his trademark hockey mask,
which they did a great job on.
Yes, they did. He assaults these two punks in a park, and he's about to literally beat him with like a goalie stick.
Yeah.
And Raph comes in and intervenes. It's not your job to do this. So they start fighting. Fun little fight sequence between Raph and Casey Jones. Casey eventually gets the upper hand, calls Raph a freak, which sets off Raph.
Yeah.
And we get another, damn! Back at home, Splinter challenges Raph. Like, I have tried to channel your anger. It clouds the mind. Turned inward, it is an unconquerable enemy. And so we see, Raph is really struggling.
Yes.
And Splinter recognizes that. Again, of course, Splinter is the father figure here.
He's the Yoda figure here.
Yes. both father and mentor.
Yeah.
And Yoda, like spiritual leader. And
right.
he's trying to help his son.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. He recognizes he's struggling. And I love the dynamic and the respect they have for Splinter. The next day, April's boss, Charles Pennington, and his teenage son, Danny, stop by April's to check in on her. She's fine. She's giving him the guff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because it's April.
Yeah, that's what she does.
Yeah.
Charles is lamenting Danny skipping school and his attitude. Where did he even get that Walkman?
Right.
Danny steals money from April's wallet too while she's not looking. And we get the classic, Charles tells April, lay off the police chief. He's got the mayor breathing down my neck. We could have easily thrown in basically any 70s cop movie into the movie Marriage just with this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like Dirty Harry.
Exactly. Or even, up to Lethal Weapon or...
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Jump Street.
Yeah.
The Turtles watch April grilling the police chief, of course, on TV. So she ignores her boss and she's just laying into him. Mikey and Leo are lusting after April. And we see Shredder. He's not fully in frame, but we see him sitting in front of a bank of 30 TVs, all on the same channel.
Right.
Watching
Center.
April. Yeah. Reading Rainbow.
Right.
It's watching the stock ticker.
Exactly.
CNBC.
Right.
And she's getting a little too close to the truth.
Yes.
She's talking about a lot of these, I've been talking with people in the, the local Eastern Asian community, and they say that this resembles a crime wave going back a couple generations overseas. And she's getting a little too close to the truth.
She's sniffing it out. She's a good reporter.
She is. She's good at her job. And Shredder just says, find her, silence her. We had a fun moment of the police chief laying into April for busting my chops.
He flips through his little handbook of cliches.
Yeah. And we see Danny getting arrested right away. We're 15 minutes in the movie, and we just met Danny, and now he's getting arrested. April goes to the subway, and while she's there, she misses her train, and she's jumped by like half a dozen Foot Clan members.
Right.
One of them just smacks her in the face and says, "Shut it." Raph had followed him, and he takes them all out. April's knocked unconscious, and he takes her back to their lair in the sewer. Mikey asks, "Can we keep her?" Of course, April freaks out when she wakes up. Splinter, in the first of a couple clear exposition moments in this movie.
No, which
yes.
I absolutely love them.
Yeah, Splinter expositions their history. As a caged rat, he learned ninja from his human master Yoshi.
Yeah.
Moved to New York. He was homeless. He came across 4 baby turtles in a glowing ooze. And then we see the little turtles growing a little bit, and one of them going, "Radical, radical, radical."
Pizza.
Yeah. I love it. Oh. So through the sewers, they walk April home. She invites them in for frozen pizza. They catch up a little bit, they bond more. Turtles return home to the sewer, and the whole place has been ransacked.
Yeah.
And Splinter's gone.
Yeah, because one of the foot soldiers had fallen into the grate and kind of followed a bit, and then led him to the lair.
Yeah. So the despondent turtles go back to April's, and Splinter's gone, and they're a wreck.
Yeah.
They're an absolute wreck, and she takes them in. In the meantime, the Chief Stearns, great name for this character.
Yes.
Tells Charles, he calls up Charles, the boss at the TV station, to inform him that Danny's been arrested. I want to make a deal, because your reporter's been talking about me. If you want your son to get out, you're going to play ball with me.
Yeah.
The next morning, Charles and Danny again show up at April's. The turtles hide. And then it's implied he cut a deal, because he basically tells April, "You've got to lay off the story for a while."
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to move you to another story.
Yeah. Yeah, Danny thinks he sees the turtles, but isn't quite clear.
It's
about
kind of a fun
what he's
scene
seeing.
as they, they're there, and Danny sees the reflect. It's like they're just constantly in and out of view.
Yeah, a little cat and mouse game kind of thing. Yeah. Danny bolts out of Charles' car, and he shows up at the club.
Which looks like a real sweet place, actually.
It does, yeah. There's people skateboarding everywhere. Yeah. There's 10-year-olds with gigantic cigars in their mouths.
Gambling, and it's arcades, and it's pretty nice place.
MC Hammer's playing.
Hammer. Live.
Yes. Sam Rockwell's talking with some new recruits. They ask, "You got any cigarettes?" And he pulls out 2 giant boxes, regular or menthol.
Right. He just had them. Had them on him.
Yeah. We also see Tatsu for the first time lurking about. Elsewhere, Tatsu's training these foot soldiers, these young teens in this art. He kicks one of them square in the face after sparring. "Never lower your eyes to an enemy."
Lesson learned.
Yep. A gong rings, and we see Shredder emerge. Huge cape, looking super cool.
Yeah.
Walks out, really ominous music. He says, "Money does not buy the honor that you have earned," and he puts a mask on somebody who's earned it. And we kind of get the narrative, because this is kind of a little cult that he's built up here, basically. And I really like it. They don't spend a lot of time on it, but I like how they show how he's convinced them to follow him. And it's a combination of a cult and a gang in a lot of ways. And the reason people go into gangs and cults is because they seek connection.
Right.
They seek safety. They seek brotherhood.
It's like an underground, Big Brothers, Big Sisters.
Yeah, it's you're not wrong, my friend. And he tells them, you're here because the world rejects you.
Yeah, society doesn't want you.
Yeah, he's teaching them how to feel like victims. I am your father. Yeah. This is your family. And sadly, that stuff works on people.
It does. Well, especially those despondent, hurt, feel like they're in the void. I need to feel accepted, and you're telling me everything I need to hear. Whether you're doing it honestly or not.
Taking advantage of the lonely, the disadvantaged. Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Again, this is early 2024 at the time of this recording. And he orders his foot soldier, "Go after these freaks of nature. They're interfering with our business." Back in the studio, April is going after Stearns on air.
Yeah.
And she thanks Raphael on camera.
Yeah.
And it cuts to the other turtles, and one of them's like, "Ooh, Studley." I love how they just write, just go after each other.
They're so like great. Teenage boys.
Yeah. Raph and Leo start arguing like, we need to go after Splinter, and Leo's like, we don't have enough info yet.
Right.
I love the sequence. Mikey and Donnie like, kitchen, pork rind, pork rind.
Right. Like this doesn't include us. Let's go do something else.
Yeah, so they're arguing. Raph leaves. Casey is on a building a couple of blocks over and spots Raph on the building. In the meantime, Raph gets jumped by, I'm guessing, the entire Foot Clan.
It's at least all the left feet.
Yes, they're all the left feet are there. And he takes some out, but eventually he's just overwhelmed. There's just too many of them. And the Foot Clan, they throw Raph and a half-dead Raphael through a skylight, landing right at the feet of the Turtles. April is returned home. And there's this big fight in April's apartment. I do love the beginning of this. One of the foot soldiers pulls out a pair of nunchucks.
Yeah.
And Mikey just looks at him and goes, "Oh, fellow chucker, eh?"
And then they have a nice little standoff, like just basically a dance-off.
Yeah, just with nunchucks.
Yeah.
I love that sequence so much. So there's this huge fight. The Turtles are throwing quips in there, but eventually they kind of get overwhelmed as well.
Yeah.
They end up falling through the floor of April's apartment, on her second floor apartment, down into this old bookstore that her father used to run.
Because one Foot Clan soldier, when the Foot Clan are losing, someone calls for help, and a guy who comes running in with like two armfuls full of axes. He's got like 12 axes. And so they start chopping at the Turtles, who keep missing, but they keep hitting the floor.
Yeah.
So they're I mean, it was just really well script designed too, of adding pre-action to lead to something later, and it's viable for the for the most part. So that, like you said, they fall through the floor. And
Donnie and Mikey are like just rolling across the floor as these guys with the axes are missing, and Donnie just yells, "Good thing these guys aren't lumberjacks." I love it.
I think Quentin Tarantino was inspired by this scene before he did The Bride versus the Crazy 88.
Well, this was New Line, was it not?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so there could be a through line there.
Yeah.
Eventually, they all, they're in the first floor. Tatsu shows up with reinforcements. Casey walks in, and it kind of helps him turn the tables. You immediately get a feel for the Casey-April future dynamic, because he looks over and says, like, "Oh, who's the babe?"
Yeah.
And April, again, this movie was 1990.
Yeah, the Turtles and Casey, they pushed real hard for Judith Hogue in this movie.
Yeah. We get a one of my favorite scenes of a guy getting pushed against like a steel fence and getting electrocuted. Which of course catches the building on fire. They're in this old bookstore, so it just goes up.
Well, yeah, because he had one of the axes that swung and like severed the electrical core, the wire, and like you said, everything just went up in flames.
So the Turtles escape. They get in a van, which is supposed to be like a wink and a nod at like the Turtle van.
Yeah.
But they escape to this like old farmhouse to just kind of lick their wounds and recover.
Yeah, it's April's family farm.
Yeah.
That's what the sign on the out of the
April's
road
family
said.
farm.
Come on, pumpkin festival.
Fresh farm eggs.
Right.
$5 for a dozen.
That's right.
Later, we see an angry Shredder. He just walks up and backhands Splinter. They have Splinter back at their base, just chained up to a fence. And Shredder's like, how do they know how to fight like this? Because he recognizes their fighting style. So it's setting up the history between the two. Shredder just stares down Tetsuo, who goes nuts and ends up beating up several of these Foot Clan members in their locker room. I was reading the trivia. Apparently, the one that he knocked out that character was originally supposed to die.
Yeah, I read that too.
But because the studio's like, we can't have that happen. And so they intentionally went back and 80-yard some dialogue. Oh, he's still alive.
Thank God.
Thank God Kevin's still breathing.
And then Tetsu goes, damn.
So Danny ends up running into Splinter as well, and they have a moment because Splinter immediately recognizes just how despondent and kind of lost Danny is. And
I get the vibe, though, that, like, obviously it happens, but wouldn't you usually have someone like always guarding the guy that you can, like
yeah. Danny just wanders in.
Yeah, it just seems like if you want to go talk to the rat, go for it.
Yeah. And you get the more the father son dynamic there. So we get a longer sequence at the farmhouse as the turtles are recovering. We see different characters connecting with each other. Capril, I just combined Casey and April's name. Capril. Casey tells April, because as he was holding off the foot and escaping, Charles had called and was leaving a message on her answering machine saying that April, you're fired. And Casey heard that. So Casey tells April this. She isn't too thrilled. We do get a dated reference as they're arguing. It's either Donnie or Mikey says, I think it's Mikey says, it's kind of like moonlighting, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. There were quite a few very poignant, time specific references that they don't detract from anything, but they're jokes that if you're watching it with someone, you might have to do some explaining.
Yeah. So Raph eventually recovers. Leo had just been beside himself with how things had left with Raph, and Casey and April grow closer. You see them flirting and kind of playfully arguing a lot. The turtles, they're healed spiritually, physically. Yes. I do love the little sequence where Casey is rubbing April's shoulders, and Mikey walks in after a sparring match, and they're like, "You need the ointment?" He's like, "No," and he grabs a thing of turtle wax. I think he even goes yuck, yuck.
Yeah, it's just they know when the jokes are, and there's even a really overacted scene earlier where they're they're doing impressions.
Yeah.
Everyone just thinks it's the most hilarious thing. Yeah. But it's just fun.
Mikey's Rocky impression.
Exactly. Yeah. April loved it.
Yeah. So they all head back. Casey, April, and the turtles, they go back to the city, go back to the sewer home. They find Danny there. He had left the foot and had been hiding there. After they all fall asleep, Danny wakes from a very, very tortured, writhing nightmare.
Yes.
And goes and sneaks off and goes back to the foot hideout. Casey follows him there.
Yeah, Casey had been sleeping in the truck because down in the sewers he just wasn't comfortable, to which one of the turtles accuses him of being claustrophobic, to which he defends himself. I've never looked at another man.
He clearly mistakes being accused of being claustrophobic with being homosexual. Yeah, exactly. Which I don't know exactly how.
Whatever, but so he goes and sleeps in the truck, which then puts him in the position to see Danny leave.
We get some more Splinter exposition about his encounter with Oroku Saki, killing his owner, his master,
over a girl.
Shredder ends up confronting Danny because again he's in there, talking to Splinter, and Danny. On the farm, April had kind of done some drawings of the turtles, and Danny took them, and Splinter found them on him, so he knows that the turtles are back. So he sends the foot, go back into the sewer and get them. In the meantime, Casey and Danny go to flee Splinter. Casey squares off with Tatsu, the second in command. And Tatsu is just beating him. But Casey, of course, comes across sporting goods.
Yeah, and finds a golf club and
finds a ping pong paddle.
Beat him with a jump rope. And a series of golf tees.
Grabbed an ice skate, jammed it into his chest.
It was a javelin right through the
heart. Shot put.
You said it was dark.
It was.
It's a bunch of track and field equipment.
Yeah. And so Casey takes out Tetsuo with his golf club, and Sam Rockwell stands up and he's like, "Well, we're family." And of course, Casey's like, "You really call this a family?" Yeah. And kind of confronts them, and they let him go. Yeah. They let Casey and Danny, take Splinter and leave. Back in the sewers, where we're kind of in the climax of the movie here. The turtles they get the literal drop on the foot soldiers, beat them up. They end up back on the streets, and this fight ends up taking them to the top of this nearby building. Yeah, where eventually the four turtles face off with Shredder. And Oz, Shredder makes pretty quick work of the turtles.
Yeah, there's not much, and even I mean, they always, like, of course, they start out with it one at a time, you know. Even when they decide to go at it a little bit more aggressively, it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
and they realize quickly we've met our match here.
Yeah, they eventually, you know, the music
Yeah.
amps up too, just to kind of increase the tension here. And you know, Raph gets a shot in, Leo gets a shot in, but but Shredder's still taking him out. And eventually, you know, they're like, "Who is this guy?" And one of them says, "Like, I don't know, but I bet he knows where Splinter is."
Which gets Shredder's attention.
Yeah, and Shredder just taunts him, and eventually Leo charges at him, you know, without any kind of caution.
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
Shredder gets his you know, like his spear up to Leo's throat.
Yeah.
Tells the others, lose your weapons now or this one dies. And so they throw their weapons away, and just as Shredder is about to kill Leo, Splinter appears on the ledge of this building.
Right.
And so Splinter, you know, it's revealed that Splinter knows who Shredder is. He knows he's a Rokusaki. So all these ties come back right there. And even Shredder recognizes him, like, because he knows there was a rat there, and there's the rat talking to me about this history. So basically Splinter knocks Shredder off of this building and lets him fall. Shredder falls several stories into the back of a garbage truck.
Right.
To which Casey oops and activates the garbage truck,
crushing him.
Yeah. So you see the helmet get crushed, Oz.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you're given the illusion that Shredder is being destroyed.
Yes. We get a little you know, epilogue scene here. Cops arrive. Sam Rockwell tells them, you know, check out this warehouse. That's where you're going to find all your answers. Charles and Danny reconnect.
It's Dan now.
Yep. I got it. That one's going to come back, my friend. We'll just leave that one there.
He's really grown up in his time away from home.
Yep. And we end on a high note. The Turtles are celebrating. Splinter's there. April and Casey share a kiss. Donnie, of course, is struggling to come up with like something fun to say. And Splinter, of all people, steps up and says, I have always liked Cowabunga.
I made a funny.
I made a funny. We get the group high five, and then this fun 90s era hip hop song plays, and the credits roll. And that, my friend, is 1990s Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What a fun movie.
It really is. It really is. I enjoy this one.
Yeah. All right. Hey, folks, at this point in the show, Oz and I will each give our own unique rating to the film we've been talking about, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Hey, Oz, how would you rate this flick? I'm
going to give this 8 katana blades.
Nice.
What are you giving it?
I'm going to go with 83 dams.
I'm going to grab the Hoover for this one.
Next up, folks, we've got Outside Insights. Oz and I have been scouring the interwebs, searching for unprofessional reviews that tickle our funny bones, and we hope they tickle yours as well. Hey, Oz, what's your Outside Insight?
I've got I have a 5-star review from Poo Poo Pee Pee Balls on Letterboxd. From last August, he says the song I Want to Be a Ninja by Jennifer Murphy could be added to any scene in this movie and it would fit seamlessly. Mm-hmm. Gets a bonus point for showing kids that cigarettes are cool. But only gives it a 0.5 star.
Regular or menthol?
Despite the bonus point, it gets a 0.5 star.
Bonus point. So, that was the bonus point.
Thank you, Poo Poo Pee Pee Balls.
You just wanted to say the user.
I did. I didn't care. I did. So that's my Outside Insight. What do you got?
I'm going to share 2 really quick.
Okay.
The first one is fast. It's literally 2 sentences, both, as always, from the Internet Movie Database. And this one is a 10 out of 10, left in April of 2020. Mutant turtles who love nothing better than fighting and eating pizza. Well, who doesn't?
I love to fight and eat pizza.
Eat pizza, often at the same time.
Yeah, usually I fight with the pizza.
The other is a 1 out of 10, left from Anan Salmon in December of 2022. So I got 2 relatively recent reviews here. I'm going to read the subject line this person put in here as well. Millennials are gaslighting us into thinking this is a good film. This movie blows. The only reason this film receives good reviews is because it was beloved by children in the 90s who are now too stubborn and blinded by nostalgia to see that it's a steaming turd. This film gets a dookie water out of 10. Yeah, I know.
These people.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Again, I don't think anyone is claiming that this is like a
No.
cinematic masterpiece.
No.
But it's a fun movie. It does have enough plot to it.
Yeah.
There's some genuine character development. Yeah, it's a little thin sometimes. Of
Right.
course. It's 4 guys in rubber turtle suits.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, it's only gonna go so far. But like, just relax and have fun.
Right. And it's like, if you don't like something, then just don't like it.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's like, oh, you know, like I've got to stake a claim. Like, just don't like it. That's okay.
My post will convince all millennials
right,
that this
exactly.
movie is dookie water.
I'm right, you're wrong, and
Yeah.
I've included dookie water. Oh my.
All right, hey folks, it's that point in the show that you've all been waiting for, our signature segment, the 3-2-1, in which Oz and I each share 3 goods, 2 bads, and 1 about the film in question, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Hey Oz, what are your 3 goods?
I really enjoyed Splinter's like exposition flashback scenes.
Yes.
You could tell they used a different film stock. It was super grainy.
Yeah.
Like they really leaned into, well, we're filming history. Let's make it look historical.
Yeah.
Which was a lot of fun. And it's like everything was shot in a pitch black room except for what was lit.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was just a real fun sequence of events there. Mm-hmm. Plus, I'm sure they kind of had to because they were working with so much puppetry that, well, if we film them in the dark, then we're good to go. That's my first good. My second good is like just really the costumes looked great. I know they were rubber suits. There's no denying they're rubber suits. But you also can't make a human-sized turtle actually like convince people that it's a turtle.
Yeah.
So
it was Henson.
Yeah, it was one of Henson's last jobs. And so aside from the costumes looking great, they were also just practical to where you didn't have to do everything off screen or slightly out of frame, or, you know, like you had stuntmen in rubber suits doing kung fu and karate stuff. So good for them. And my third is, you'd mentioned there was a plot. There is-ish a plot. But it's like overall the movie was real enjoyable, even if the plot wasn't like super nailed down. You know, it's like, yes, there was a story to follow for sure. But at the same time, this is supposed to be like this it's not a universe because it's obviously New York and it's supposed to be New York.
Yeah.
But like you're coming from like this grand make-believe, you know, like universe of the Ninja Turtles. And so with that, like they did a great job with introductory stuff. You could tell this was built to go somewhere else. Because it's like if the big bad was, you know, Shredder just stealing electronics. It's like, but either way, it was real enjoyable. Like you weren't going to miss anything if you dozed off for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Those are my 3 goods. What do you got?
My 3 goods. I'm going to start with, let's see. I'm actually going to combine a couple I got here. The storytelling I thought was very good. And combined with just like the characters, the relationships. I really liked the act 2 at the old house. I thought that it was long enough without lingering too long.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this was tied together through the editing, and my fake Aunt Sally Menke was one of the editors on this, and so
another Tarantino.
You mentioned Tarantino earlier, so yeah, I think this was one of her first jobs too. So hey, Aunt Sally, great job editing this. It really showed, and I think it really had a huge impact on the final product here. So that's my first good. Just
convinces me even more that Tarantino was inspired by this film.
Yeah.
Even went and got the editor of this film to work for him.
Yeah, and like we say that a little jokingly, but there's probably a hint of truth to that.
Yeah.
My second good, and I'm repeating myself from earlier, but I love it so much. The fellow Chucker scene.
Yeah.
It's just so silly.
Yeah, it is.
It's so dumb. Like they just almost killed Raph. And he crashes through the skylight, and because they're teenagers, you know, like Mikey clearly doesn't recognize the gravity of the situation. And the one guy, the foot member, pulls out the nunchucks, and Mikey tightens up his headband.
Yeah.
Oh, fellow chucker, eh?
Well, and like everyone stops fighting for this.
Yeah, and it's just it's the turtle and the one guy, and even like the guy's foot, like the foot soldiers guys behind him. After he the guy.
Yeah,
Does a really cool performance. That's what I was looking for. All the others were like, yeah.
It is a very fun scene. That, like when you think about it for just a moment too long, you're like, that's dumb. It's like you said, the gravity of the situation, the amount of foot soldiers there. It's like, and then everyone just stops for this dance off, basically.
I love, and I love that scene more as I age.
Yeah,
like when I was a kid, I thought it was fun.
Yeah,
but like now, I love it just because it's so goofy.
It is, and it really is goofy.
So that's my second good. My last good, and this is a total humble brag on my part. Humble brag alert. When I was in grad school working on my counseling, my master's in counseling, I was in my group counseling class. And the big project was you have to watch a movie that features group dynamics. You have to identify the leader. You have to identify who kind of takes on all the different roles in a group. I wrote a 35-page paper on the group dynamics of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie.
If anyone ever doubted your geekiness,
yes,
I think you've just solidified it. And and congratulations to you.
Yes, 35-page graduate school paper. Like everybody else was like Breakfast Club,
right? Yeah,
12 Angry Men, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I'd forgotten that you did that.
How
well was it received?
I believe I got an A.
Yeah, awesome. And how many professors had to go watch the movie to know what you're talking about?
That I don't know, but I think my professor enjoyed himself. So
because I'm sure he's seen The Breakfast Club.
Well, he was kind of nerdy in his own right too.
Oh, fair enough. There you go.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. So those are my three goods. Hey, Oz, what's your two bads?
I didn't think the actor portraying Shredder just wasn't big enough.
Like physically big enough?
Yeah, physically big enough. His costume was exactly what it should have been. But they were, especially that rooftop scene where they show Shredder for the first time, like to the Turtles. You just look and you're like, this guy he's not like a show enough. Like
who's the biggest?
But he's not this larger than life figure. Like he's a fairly slim and trim, actor, which is fine. Like whatever. But for me, it was like I wanted the gear to fit the size of man. And this gear just was like, you put large, shoulder pads on a smaller dude. So
he's no Kevin Nash as Super Shredder from the second one.
Exactly. So that's really my first is that Shredder just wasn't big enough. And two, as much as I also enjoyed that second act, at the farm, I mentioned it earlier that just that bit with the impression scenes and how hard everyone was laughing at whatever, like
that Mikey going, Adrian,
and so I got another one, and someone's like, Jim, it's Cagney, like that they've seen this before, but I don't know, they were having a good time. I understand it set the mood and set the tone, like that was all fine, but it just like what everyone was just guffawing at was like less than comical for me. So that was my second. I was like, oh, that was it. You got a Rocky impression and everyone's just losing it. So those are my two bads. What do you got?
My first bad is more of just like a minor poke at the origin of like TMNT in general. And for the second straight week, we're referencing Frank Miller.
Okay.
The original run really took some liberties from Frank Miller's Daredevil run.
Okay.
So for instance, like the mentor figure in that run of Daredevil was Stick, whereas the mentor figure in this is Splinter.
Right. Got it.
The bad guy Ninja Clan in the Daredevil run was the hand.
The hand.
And in this one, it's the foot.
Yeah.
So, they really borrowed a lot from Frank Miller's Daredevil run. Yeah. Again, it's still enjoyable, but it could have been a little more original.
Well, and it's like that almost puts Ninja Turtles as like a pseudo Daredevil parody of sorts.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of similarities there too, between the two.
Whatever. flat, what is it? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Is that what it is?
Yeah, sure. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
My other one, I'm debating between two. I'm just going to briefly mention one. And you would have mentioned a little earlier, like Casey's he's kind of misogynistic and homophobic.
Yeah.
Yeah. My other real bad though is like some of the Charles Danny stuff was like, okay, like,
Yeah. I originally had as one of my bads, like Charles's parenting style.
Yeah.
I'm constantly disappointed and yelling at you. Why don't you stay home more? Like,
well, you're not really giving him a lot of reasons to connect there, are you, Charles?
Exactly.
But yeah, some of the Charles Danny stuff just kind of got old after a while.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Those are my bads. Hey, Oz, what's your huh?
How did Shredder know to check Danny's back pocket? Like, watching it and, Shredder's just, where were you? I was out. You're lying to me. Like, that's fine. Like, you're sensing that this teenager's trying to pull your leg. That's fine. But then he just looks at him and then reaches around behind him and pulls the turtle artwork out of his back pocket. Like, yes, it moves the plot along, but why would you check his pocket?
And for a moment, you see Shredder, complete with the blades coming off his little gauntlet there, kind of going down Danny's side. Like, where's he going with this?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I didn't know this was going to be that kind of movie.
Like,
I knew this was a dark movie.
Careless Whisper starts playing in the background. But no, that was my hoe. Was that how like just because Shredder didn't give off any like mystical power, you just I need to grab the picture in your back pocket, like so that was my huh. Is like it's just how did Shredder know to do that other than I'm supposed to do this to move the story along? So, what's your huh?
I'm gonna throw a quick warm up huh in there, and that's like, how did Splinter like telepathically communicate with the turtles? But that's neither here nor there. My real huh, and we kind of briefly mentioned this earlier. Are Dan's more moral than Danny's?
Yeah,
that's right. That's
the old me.
So, like, I don't know, like if I'm assuming for people who are born Daniel, they could go by Daniel, they can go by Danny, they can go by Dan.
Yeah.
But apparently, Dan's are more mature, and upright citizens.
Yes.
Than Danny's.
Yeah. I've turned over a new leaf, Pa.
It's kind of like like how Scottie Pippen's almost 60 and he's still Scotty.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like the only guy who can get away with that is Scotty from Star Trek.
That's it.
That's it.
There's and that's just because he's Scottish. Like, that's not even because of his name.
Yeah, it's because he's Scottish. He's paying tribute to his heritage.
Exactly.
I don't think Scottie Pippen is Scottish. Like,
no, just like Shaquille O'Neal's not Irish.
Not Irish. Yeah. So are Dan's more moral than Danny's?
Yeah, it was kind of like he's talking to Daddy. It's Dan. It's Dan now.
It's Dan. You call me Dan.
Right.
I'm gonna go home and do the taxes.
Right. It's like that episode of The Office where like Andy Bernard gets sent away for anger management for punching a wall, or, you know, and he comes back and they're like, Andy, you're right. It's Drew.
I forgot about that.
It's Drew now. To which
changed my identity.
To which then Jim proceeds to just continue calling him Andy just because he knows it upsets him. I go by Drew now. Okay. So that's fun. We've got one more week left in this month.
We do have one more, and it's back to you for to round out
the grand
non-Marvel DC comic book movie month.
That is correct. We are going to wrap up the month with another MCU DC comic book movie.
Yeah, this was an Image comic.
Yes, we are going to cover. We're going to go with Spawn. We're going to cover Spawn.
Oh, what a movie this is.
I've seen it one time, and it's going to be like watching a new one for me.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw this in the theaters, and I got ahead and I watched it, and yeah, we're in for a ride here, guys. We're in for something here. We're going to have a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah, John Leguizamo and Is it Michael Jai White?
Michael Jai White as Spawn. Black Dynamite himself.
Yeah, I really enjoy Black Dynamite as a movie. And so, but yeah, this will feel like a new watch for me for sure.
I completely forgot Martin Sheen is in this.
Really?
Yeah, I completely forgot.
Okay, well, then there was Martin Sheen as well. And then next week at the end, we'll also reveal our May theme.
We will.
As we're transitioning to the end of a school year and the beginning of another summer. And
Spoiler.
So, yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff coming up ahead. Yeah. So, social media-wise, you guys can find us Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're also on Patreon, so you can catch a link down below if you'd like to join.
You too could be like Koki and join Patreon.
You could join. This is your family now. Like,
let's talk about Flix is becoming it's like the Foot Clan.
It's right.
This is your family. I am your father.
You're joining the Patreon because society has rejected you.
Yes, you have a home here.
That's right, and we've got free cigarettes. So
we got regular and menthol.
That's right. And so we'll be back next week with Spawn to wrap up non-Marvel DC comic book movie. And until then, you guys, actually, let's see real quick. I keep meaning to mention these, and I always forget where our viewers can watch the movies we're going to cover. 1997 Spawn can be watched nowhere streaming for free, so it's either a rental or a buy, which is odd because there's huge demand for this movie. But we'll be watching Spawn next week for another episode of Let's Talk About Flicks. I'm Oz.
I'm Curtis.
And we'll see you guys next week.